Tim, question I like to ask in terms of understanding existence or what exists now. Lots of things exist. We see an ocean, a table, but I mean, at the most fundamental level, and the way I like to ask the question is what are the things that exist that cannot be then defined in terms of something else?
Yeah. So you're asking what's the most fundamental level. So, I mean, first let's just talk about physical reality, because there's the question, are there things other than physical existence, which is it's a quite separate question.
And what is physical existence? I mean,
well, yeah, I don't think you can define physical existence in some other terms. We know, as you say, things like tables and chairs, right? Good enough. Right. What are they at bottom? Obviously, we don't know for sure yet because we don't have a completed physics. It looks as though, very plausibly, quantum mechanics is so powerful and effective, something like what's called a wave function or a quantum state is part of reality. It looks like something like space and time are part of reality. And I think, to use John Bell's terms, there has to be something localized in space and time, what he called a local beable, to make tables and chairs out of that are localized in space and time. And so you'd like to know what that part is, because the wave function or the quantum state is not localized in space and time. So I would say the sort of ingredients we have are something like space-time structure, a kind of quantum state or wave function-y thing, and something else that we don't know yet what it is. Maybe it's strings, maybe it's particles, maybe it's fields that are localized in space-time and whose behavior is influenced or governed by this quantum state.
So are you saying that those three things are each independently existing at fundamental levels, or is there a hierarchy among them?
I would find it very hard to say there's a hierarchy among them. They seem to me sort of co-equal elements, ingredients in what looks like fundamental reality.
So none of them would be reducible to any of the others.
Right, that's the suggestion.
Now some physicists would like to believe that space and time is emergent from stuff.
Right. So, and that depends on what you mean by emergent, and it depends on what you mean by space-time. Sometimes they mean something that's not all that interesting or astonishing. So some people define space-time as having to be a continuum, which is the way Einstein deals with it in general relativity.
Okay.
And when they say space-time is emergent, all they mean is, at a fundamental level, at Planck scale, it's not really a continuum anymore. Maybe it's discrete, maybe it's got a kind of lattice structure.
A quantum structure.
Exactly, yeah. A quantized structure, and that it appearing to be continuous at the scale we live at is just because we can't see, it's macroscopic, we can't see that chart. And all they mean by space-time emerging is that this appearance of a continuum is a product of what's fundamentally not a continuum at basic. That's perfectly possible. Even Zeno imagined that. Everybody could say that's a possibility. I wouldn't bet one way or the other about how that goes.
But how that goes would affect whether space-time should be among your bottom rung categories.
So I don't use space-time in that way. So even if it turns out to be discrete, I would still call it space-time. I would say we've just found out that space-time is actually discrete, not a continuum.
I think it's more emergent than just quantized at that level. I mean, in some sense, it didn't exist.
I don't know. Well, I don't know what that means.
Isn't that a claim? Isn't that a claim? It didn't exist prior to something.
Again, especially if you're saying prior in a temporal sense, all of these locutions become kind of very hard to comprehend.
No, I understand that, but don't use that to try to avoid the problem. I mean, you can say it doesn't make sense, and you're right, it doesn't make sense. But other people think that you can eliminate time and space from reality.
Well, again, be careful. If you say it's emergent, like the table is emergent in the sense that it's not a fundamental object. As you say, it resolves into smaller things, right? It's not the bottom level of analysis.
Right.
But that's not to say that it doesn't exist and it's not perfectly real, right? Here it is.
Sure.
People have talked about the emergence of space-time from something non-spatiotemporal. I've personally never seen an actual proposal for this that I can understand.
What about other categories? Abstract objects, non-physical stuff, theological stuff.
Yeah, so that's different. I think there's mathematical reality. I think there are mathematical facts that are independent of physics, that no matter how physics comes out, 2 + 2 = 4. And so that's a different kind of reality or being or existence.
Is that a reality or a human construct?
It's absolutely a reality. We don't construct the numbers. They're an infinite collection of arithmetical truths, and we didn't make them up. They're truths. They're things we discover. We discover mathematical facts. We don't invent them.
Yeah, well, that's controversial. I mean, some people think we do.
Well, if we invented them, then we would have a choice into how they go. We have no choice when you ask what's the sum of 2 + 2. There's only one right answer.